Welcome to Inside Boxing Daily on the Gruely True Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Boxers Foundation. You can check out our friends Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos on Facebook there. And, of course, MyBookie.ag, where you can go to MyBookie.ag, put in the promo code TGT100, and get up to 100% cash back bonus on your first $300 deposit. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.com, click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm damn well, Mike. Let's get this thing going.
All right. Deontay Wilder, TV ratings peaked at 990,000 viewers for Showtime. Does good or bad, Jeremiah?
Well, I mean, I think if you're John Einrenhofer, I think that's not a great sign. I mean, it's a tick down from Luis Ortiz, but it's an upward trend from who the hell is the other guy that he fought? The hell, I can't remember, but yeah, it's. Who's the guy? Who's the other guy that he had like 800 something thousand against?
Stavern the second time?
Yes. Yeah, okay. So you have 1.2 million for Luis Ortiz. You've got, not quite a million here. And then you've got 800 plus for the second Stavern fight. So I don't know exactly what that says. I mean, the impression, at least from our buddy, our other co-host, was that, he expected something to be a bit better.
He said at least $1 million. It was close to $1 million. So,
it was.
And then he's going to say it was a one-round fight. It didn't really have time to build. But still, I mean, the average viewing time, or the average viewers for Wilder Ortiz was 1.1 million for the entire card that peaked at 1.2.
Yeah, well, and that's my thing, too, is, again, I don't look at the numbers all that closely. It's not something I follow that religiously. I mean, but what was it up against? I mean, was there a big...
You had the conference... you had the Western Conference Finals, Green Bay... Golden State. I'm having a hell of a time today. Golden State, of course, led by Aaron Rodgers against the Portland Trail Blazers. And I think that series was pretty much done, though. I mean, that was game 3. And to compare it, and I know that you can't really compare it because it was on regular network TV or ESPN, whatever it was on that night, but they drew an average of 7.3 million viewers.
Okay. Well, I mean, that could have been something that affected the ratings. I mean, it is tough to say, but I just think that the opponent itself was just not that appealing. I mean, as if Jim Gray kind of came across as an asshole in the post-fight interview, and he was basically like, "Why are you fighting guys like Dominic Breazeale?" And Breazeale himself was probably offended by the comment, and that's partly why he didn't.
I was offended from watching Breazeale try to fight Wilder.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was offended as soon as the fight was announced, but yeah, I mean, it's Jim Gray wasn't lying though. I mean, we're just getting a little tired of seeing this stuff. I mean, the good thing, however, is regardless of the ratings. The knockout itself has been picked up by a lot of outlets. I mean, CNN ran an article about it. They talked about it. I believe it was on ESPN's top plays. So even if he didn't draw the viewership that he was hoping for, the knockout itself garnered a good amount of attention.
Well, I think that, we have Jay Smooth, who said the Warriors were up 3-0. Let's not act like it was Game 7. Showtime has been slumping for the last 5 years across the board. That's his comment.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I don't follow the numbers all that closely. I mean, if a lot of people were tuned out, because here's my thing is because I don't follow the numbers religiously, I'd have to know, were people watching, the Golden State Warriors and Portland Trail Blazers, were they watching it in the same amount as they were the previous games? I don't know. I mean, were less people tuned out? I don't know, man. It's just there's a lot of complexity there, and I'm not exactly sure what it means.
But
again,
supposed to be an American heavyweight champion. You would think the numbers would be much better than that. And people say, well, Vlad, or when AJ fought Vladimir, they only got 500,000, but they also got to remember that's during the middle of the day, and then the replay of the Vlad AJ fight did another 7 or 800,000. So technically, you were 1.2 million there too.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that number probably ignores the global audience as well, because I'm pretty sure that the global audience, I never got the numbers for that, but
it was huge. I mean,
had to be.
I think they had I think it was like 2 million buys on the pay-per-view in Great Britain. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, so you don't have to, if you're out there saying, "Oh, he's a dumbass." Yeah, I may be, but I'm just guessing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, is they have different setups in different places as well. So, like sometimes, whatever fight may be free for us, it might, cost a Brit something, or it might cost somebody in Germany something too. And, I'm just trying to think of the global audience. I mean, it's like people in Germany had to have been watching that in significant amounts, because Klitschko's been a big German sports figure for many, many years. And then you include whatever, I just don't know the TV deals, but it had to been millions upon millions who actually watched that fight. I'm not quite sure you can compare this to to something like Klitschko and Joshua. I just don't think they're on the same league.
All right, so now we got George Foreman came out today and said that he believes the unification bout between Wilder and Joshua would be the biggest fight in heavyweight history. George Foreman smokes weed, doesn't he?
I'm not quite sure weed does that to you. I mean, I'm not a smoker myself, but the biggest fight in history. I mean, in terms of revenue, I don't know. I mean,
it wouldn't even be the biggest heavyweight fight of this century, because Lewis Tyson, no matter how stupid it was to have that fight with Tyson at that point, was still much bigger than this. What this would ever be. And when you look at like Lewis Schmeling 2, Johnson Jeffries, Ali Frazier 1, those fights transcended sports. And I'm not talking about transcended sports by people that weren't sports fans cared about it. I mean, it actually transcended it. It was actually a cultural event, which this can't be. And it's not these guys' fault necessarily, because neither one of them could really dodge the draft or be a Nazi. So I just don't see how, with those factors there. And I think the one thing that would make this fight huge, maybe, would be the fact that the most intriguing part to this fight, if they fight each other, is the fact that I really don't know how good either one of them are, which gives you a little bit of mystery there, too.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, and I think a little the luster has been taken off by the fact that most people saw Deontay Wilder lose to, Tyson Fury. So it seems like, his cap has already been met. But I think with Joshua, who's a bit more rigid and, you know what I mean, not as fluid, a bit more there to be hit, I think that would bring some excitement. And not only that, you have a big heavyweight and British heavyweight throwing down. That would be nice. I mean, it'd be fun to see, but we talked on yesterday's show, and it's like, when is that actually going to happen? I mean, you look at Deontay Wilder's schedule, and it seems as if he's already got Luis Ortiz penciled in for the rematch, and then Konaki after that. So when exactly does he get one of these guys? And again, it's not. I'm not getting accusatory in the sense that I think Wilder is afraid. I think a lot of this talk is overblown, that somebody is ducking somebody else. I think they're all just they're trying to maximize their revenue, and unfortunately, it may turn out to be a dud. I mean, most heavyweight fights and pay-per-view fights in general turn out to be.
Well, lately pay-per-view fights are. In the 70s, when I grew up, in the 80s, they were actually pretty good a lot of times. Except for that Tyson Spinks thing. That was a rough night. It was over quick. And the bad thing was, I went to Pollard's Bowling Alley in Versailles, Indiana, and me and my dad actually went there a year later and got to see Lalonde and Leonard. But the thing was, they scrambled the signal so bad we couldn't get it on our illegal satellite TV feed at the bowling alley, so I didn't even get to see it.
What a terrible time.
It was at the time because Tyson Spinks was huge. This ain't gonna be as big as Tyson Spinks even. The fight might have sucked, but Tyson Spinks was a big ass event.
Well, yeah, and what are we engaging, or what are we saying about the term big? Like, what exactly does that entail? I mean, if you're talking financially, I don't know. I mean, the thing about today is that there are more streams of revenue that are available to these guys. I mean, sponsorships and whatnot are a bigger thing. And I know Joshua's huge over in the UK. I watched, when I'm watching some of the fights, he's in a good number of the commercials. And I mean, obviously the guy's making a pretty penny from that. I'm not sure what Deontay Wilder. I think he's got Everlast as a sponsor. Again, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I mean, there are more streams of revenue today than ever. But in terms of big, I mean, again, we've talked about this before, but there's just no way that any of these fights would hold the significance that some of the old fights did, especially around the wartime. I mean, again, Jack Dempsey fought Georges Carpentier, and there was royalty. I'm not shitting you, royalty. And, business moguls sitting ringside and their kids as well.
Didn't Johnson Jeffries, you had like Wyatt Earp there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, like, Dempsey Carpentier, I mean, you had guys like Rockefeller's sons and princes and people of that caliber. I mean, nobody's really drawing that sort of stuff. I mean, again, we look at the Ali fights. It's not comparable, man. It really isn't.
All right, let's move on. Today, the Ring Magazine came out with a new updated pound-for-pound list. We'll go through it real quick. I'll just read these off. Number 1, Lomachenko. Number 2, Crawford. Number 3, Canelo Alvarez. Number 4, Inoue. Number 5, Usyk. Number 6, Spence. 7, Golovkin. 8, Estrada. 9, Marky Garcia. 10, Donny Nietes. Let's just start off with the top 5. Lomachenko, Crawford, Alvarez, Inoue, and Usyk. Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
I think this is a joke. I mean, if anybody who's listening to this show knows, I'm not a big Canelo Alvarez fan, but just look at who he's beaten. I mean, look at who he's fought. I mean, to me, he has the best resume of all these guys. I know his resume is better than Terrence Crawford's.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt.
And I don't think it's any doubt it's better than Lomachenko's. And you love Lomachenko, but when you look at who Canelo has fought,
oh yeah,
it far outweighs Lomachenko. I think Alvarez should be number 1 on this list.
Well, I mean, I think you can justify that. I think anybody can, and I actually think, again, that I'm not an Alvarez hater or anything. I mean, he's had some bumps in the road, but I also think he seems like a decent guy and a family man, and he doesn't talk a bunch of shit about his opponents. And yeah, I mean, he goofed with the PEDs and stuff, but we've talked about this on the show. I mean, just about all the guys are doing it anyways. But I think
my problem with him is nothing happened to him for it. At least with Povetkin, he got suspended a little bit,
Yeah, well, but here's the thing: this is how I think guys are viewing it. I do think Canelo gets docked a little bit. Because of the controversy and because he seems like a cog in the political machine, and people don't like that. You know what I mean? It just seems like he's getting a bunch of pat on the backs, and that's the problem with some of these guys, right? So it's like, yeah, I think it's perception with Canelo Alvarez and boxing in general that, yeah, Alvarez he's unbeaten against, Austin Trout and Erislandy Lara, and he's 1-0-1 against Gennady Golovkin, but he could be, he could have 3 losses already. I mean, if he was Cuban, if he was, Ukrainian or Russian or any of that, I mean, it's likely that he's probably not only sporting a single-digit loss on his record. I think that's where people kind of gauge him. Where again, part of it's about perception. Like, yeah, officially he's got the wins, but part of that feels like favoritism, and I also think part of it is, some people evaluate in the sense that they're like, well, if everybody was the same weight and you put them all together, who's coming out victorious? And I think the perception there is that Crawford and Lomachenko have better ability.
All right. So when we look at this, do you think Inouye is right at 4? Do you think it's too high, too low?
No, I think he could be. I think he could be. No, I think that's a fine position. I mean, I think he could be above Usyk. And my reason is because I really like Usyk, and I'm glad he cleared out a division, and he's the man, and now he's moving up to
Yeah, but that
heavyweight.
division was weak. And I mean, he struggled. Didn't look great against Michael Hunter. He didn't look great against Breedis. I mean, I'm still not sold on him. I hope he's the real deal because he could help the heavyweight division out a lot. But I haven't seen that yet where I could put him in the top 5.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is Usyk, it looks like he has ability that's going to translate pretty well at above 200 pounds. I mean, he fought there as an amateur. You can just go look at the film, and he's beat up guys like Joe Joyce. I know Joyce is kind of a robot, but the thing about it is, I think the perception is that his skills will translate. I mean, only time will tell. But when you compare his resume to guys who are pretty close to him, right? You've got Errol Spence at 6 for them. I mean, I see why somebody would favor Usyk's resume because Errol Spence he's not even convinced everybody that he's the best at his weight division, let alone, one of the world's very best. I mean, and when you break his resume down, you have Kell Brook, who is a top 5 guy, and a little beat up, not the prime of his career, but again, not shot. And then you have Mikey Garcia, who still is for the Ring magazine, considered a pound for pound guy. The problem with that, to me, is that Mikey Garcia is not a pound for pound fighter at 147. I think that's where a lot of people are kind of getting it wrong, where they're like, oh, well, he was a pound for pounder. Yeah, but if you put it in context and tell me how he is at 147, I think he's probably a bottom top 10-ish kind of guy. So when you lay that out, you have one top 5 guy and one top 10-ish type guy. So I can see why you have Usyk.
I've got a listener's question.
Sure.
And before that, though, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think Lomachenko's number 1?
I do.
All right. At Castaneda says, let me be clear. If you believe Loma's the best pound for pound, you're the most ignorant thing in this world. You are a joke, Jeremiah. Simple as that. You got attacked.
Ouch. Yeah, my feelings are hurt. Hey, I mean, I appreciate the comment, but I just, how do you, so lay it out for me why, I mean, and you can comment back if you like. I mean, we'll read it again, no problems there.
Yeah, you can type some more if you want.
Yeah, and so here's my thing, okay? To most of us out there, Lomachenko and Terence Crawford are the most skilled operators in the world. And when you compare those two, Lomachenko has the better resume, okay? Terence Crawford, yeah, he's cleaned out he's been the man in a couple divisions, but he did against, I think, Ricky Burns at 135 and Victor Postol at 140. And Lomachenko, again, Gary Russell Jr., which is looking like a pretty rock-solid win so far. I mean, again, this was his 3rd fight, but Russell, Rigondeaux, again, Linares. I just think that most people would agree that Lomachenko has a better resume, a better strength of schedule than Terence Crawford. So if those are the 2 most talented guys in the world to most of us, and Lomachenko has a better resume, what then makes it ignorant to place him atop the pound for pound list?
Let's try it because we got a response. Petachenko's best win is against Linares. Linares has 5 losses by KO, and Petachenko, whatever the hell it is pound for pound number 1 question mark. And he says SOS, whatever that means, from these shameless racists. It's in the genes.
So it's racial that Lomachenko is number 1. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I mean, so I'd like to know who he thinks is number 1. But if you say that Linares is, you can knock Linares' losses.
Okay, I can tell you real quick. He thinks Errol Spence is.
Okay. All right. So
Because
So
Spence
Kell
beat a
Brook,
guy on the top 10 pound for pound list.
okay, well, Rigondeaux was ranked by the top. Rigondeaux was ranked in the pound for pound list as well when he beat him. So
They only
I mean,
ranked him that high, so when the white guy beat him, they could put the white guy number one.
yeah, it was a bunch of racism. They're like, well, we got to squeeze him in. And funny enough, Linares, say what you want about his losses, Linares was actually close to being on the pound for pound list himself. So, and not only that, you're looking at Gary Russell Jr., who if he beats Leo Santa Cruz, I think he will have proven himself as the best featherweight since Lomachenko has left that class. And that class has been pretty strong with Carl Frampton and again, Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell and a number of other guys. So I just don't see the argument there. I mean, yeah, Linares has losses, but it's not as if he didn't pick up the pieces and put it together. And he became the rings lightweight champion. I don't put a ton of weight on that because he beat Anthony Crolla to do so, but he was ranked number one. Well, now Mikey Garcia was for transnational, but we're still talking about at least the number two lightweight in the world. He beat Nicholas Walters, who was number one at 126 before he moved up. He beat Gary Russell Jr., who became number one for the Ring magazine in 2015, 2016. He beat Roman Martinez, which I believe was a top 5 guy. I mean, we're talking about guys who were tops in their division, and then you have Kell Brook, who he might have been number one for a little while, but I remember there was a question whether it was him or Keith Thurman. So I don't see it. I mean, again, when you put them all together and all you have is Mikey Garcia and Kell Brook, and then you combine that with Lomachenko's Linares, Russell, Walters, Martinez. Again, Crolla is not a great fighter, but he was a top 10 guy. I mean, the dude's been fighting world-class opposition since his second fight.
All right, we got Alm 73 at Alm 70. It says Lomo haters have mental illness. That's all he says.
Well, I mean, it's like everybody's picking sides. Everybody's aligning with their tribe, and I mean, it's funny because Lomachenko is number one for the Ring magazine, and the editor-in-chief for the Ring magazine is a black guy. So, I mean, I'm just kind of confused as to what exactly is going on there. I don't know if Douglas Fisher is I don't know, maybe considered an Uncle Tom to this guy or what. But I mean, we're talking about the editor-in-chief as a black guy, and he's number one. So how do you indicate, like, where does the racism stem there?
Don't ask me, but if the guy writing us wants to respond, he can feel free to. 6 through 10. Errol Spence, Gennady Golovkin, Estrada, Mikey Garcia, Donny Nietes. Alright. I would actually put Golovkin higher because I really believe he beat Canelo. I know he beat him the first time. The second time, I'm pretty sure he beat him, but that was a close fight. So I'll give you a call there, which I think those two both belong top 3 or 4, which is why we should get to see them fight. Mikey Garcia, do you think he still belongs in the top 10 pound for pound list?
Yeah, I think he can belong there. I mean, the reason being is because I think he was just out of his depth at 147. I still think he's potentially a pound for pound operator at 135. But, seeing as he's fighting Danny Garcia next, it seems as if, he's going to try his hand at 147 once again. And I don't think he's built physically.
Who did he beat at 135 that was like a really, really good fighter?
Yeah, I know. Well, he beat Dejan Zlaticanin, who I believe was number 2 for the Ring.
Yeah, but come on. I don't care where he was ranked. It's not like he was... I think Mikey Garcia is a good fighter. I'm not as impressed now after what I saw with Spence. I know the weight moved, but damn it, he said he could handle it, and he didn't. He said he saw something, and he didn't. And the thing I see here is his last fight he got dominated. Before that, he's beaten guys like Adrian Broner. He had like 2 or 3 years off in between there. He's a top 10 talent. I just don't know that over the last 4 years that he's done enough to deserve to be on this list.
Yeah, and that's my thing is I would like to agree completely. It's one of those things like, yeah, Mikey Garcia hasn't faced the best opposition. I mean, it's really disappointing that he's not fighting Vasil Lomachenko and he's fighting Danny Garcia. I mean, that could have been a real good legacy fight at 135. And I agree that his resume isn't particularly strong, but then you have to compare it to other guys whose resumes aren't particularly strong as well. I mean, it's like you look at Donnie Nietes, who's below him. Estrada, I think, with the win over Rungvisai is pretty damn good. But that's the thing is you're comparing him to a modern bunch. So you're comparing Mikey Garcia to a lot of guys who are doing a lot of the same shit.
Well, I think the thing that stands out to me is if I did this top 10 list in 1980 or 1990, I wouldn't have a problem thinking of 10 guys. But I really have a hard time thinking of 10 really good fighters that deserve to be on this list.
Yeah, I mean, and it's because of what we talked about in the past. I mean, these guys they're not taking on the big challenges, so they're not making it clear. But that's why guys like Usyk and Inoue and Lomachenko and Crawford are where they are and Canelo Alvarez, because they are taking on the challenges. They are fighting the best. Guys like Spence, well, he's probably not going to fight Crawford anytime.
But Canelo put it off for a few years too, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean,
wasn't like he was in a hurry to go challenge him. And we have, well, it's not a question, but a comment from @Flores95. Don't forget Leo Santa Cruz.
So, hey, good shout there actually, because Transnational, the rankings organization that I'm on, has Leo Santa Cruz in the top 10, and I think he's a much better replacement for Donnie Nietes. Nietes, to me, I know a number of the guys at the Ring magazine, and I just think it was an unnecessary push to get him in there. I mean, I think he was the Ring's champ at 108, but that was quite a while ago. He's had some longevity, but he really hasn't fought the best of opposition. So it's almost like we're still waiting with bated breath to see what his legacy becomes. And to be honest with you, if you really pay attention to his resume, it is good. He is a skilled fighter, but I would encourage anybody to just go look at his last couple fights. Yeah, he got a draw with Palikte. I'm not sure exactly how you say his name, but he got a split decision against Kazuto Ioka, who I think is a pretty good fighter. And almost anybody that I know who saw the fight, including myself, thought Ioka won. So to me, it just feels like Nietes is holding the spot, but it's a little bit flimsy. But I agree. I think Leo Santa Cruz should be on there. And again, with Transnational, he is.
All right. Have we had enough of that? Is there anybody else you think should be on this top 10 list? It's not, because I think the bottom of his list the bottom of the Rings magazine's list was a little weak.
Yeah, and again, I think it's because we're not getting the big fights in a timely fashion, and so I don't think I have too many problems with it. I mean, I know surprisingly a good number of people have, Anthony Joshua near there. I saw Rick Glazer today. He had Miguel Berchelt at like number 6, which I think is far too high. I'd really like him to fight Gervonta Davis so we can actually know who the best at that class is. I think I'd like to see, 175 play out so we can, get one of those guys up there. I think Gvozdyk is fairly close. Who else do I see? I see Louis Neary as being pretty close to that list as well. He's a top-notch operator. I actually think Rungvisai can still be in that list. I think when he fought Southpaw against Estrada, it looked more like a 50-50 fight. So, yeah, there are a few guys that I think you can squeeze in there or interchange. But to me, it's still a good list. I mean, they do have a panel, and they do generally do a good job.
All right, next up, Callum Smith will fight June the 1st on the undercard of the Anthony Joshua, Dandy Ruiz fight against Hassan and Dom. It's official on the undercard. What do you think about this one? Is this any kind of trouble for Callum?
I don't know. I mean, it looks, Endom is a chinny guy. I mean, he was knocked down like what 5 times against Peter Quillen. Quillen really hasn't amounted to uh, really a whole lot, to be honest with you. I mean, he was ranked highly at 160, and I think that was probably justified because the division was kind of weak at the time. Um, but he's been inactive. He's almost been like the middleweight and super middleweight version of Gary Russell Jr., where he's fighting like once a year or something, or maybe even that. But Endom is a good fighter. Even when he was getting knocked down by Peter Quillen, he was out boxing him a lot of times. He's got good movement. He's got good hand speed. He's over the hill at this point. So he may trouble Callum Smith a bit with his foot movement, but he's not a 168 pounder. I mean, the fact that he's even ranked in the organizational's rankings at all just shows that this is political nonsense. And again, I could see him giving Smith some trouble, but Smith is just too big. I think he's just too big. I think he's just too strong, and I think eventually he gets him out of there.
All right. You got anything else you want to talk about tonight, Jeremiah?
Did I see anything interesting in the news today?
I saw that Joe Joyce says his next opponent could be Alexander Povetkin.
Yeah, I heard that. I actually heard that. I heard him say that he would take that fight, and I think that would be interesting. I don't think that's the best course of action. I know Povetkin is way past his prime as well, and and beating him would probably earn him a spot.
You know what? The Povetkin that fought the first 5 or 6 rounds against Anthony Joshua, I think would win this fight.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I actually favor Alexander Povetkin if that fight comes off, just because, I mean, just what again, it's hard to tell exactly what the toll physically has been for him, but if he looks like that, I suspect that he could probably knock Joyce out. If I was Joyce, I would focus more on I don't know, it's tough because he's already kind of at an advanced age. I think he's 33, 34. The sand is running out on his the sand is running out, and I think that he's trying to rush to it. But what I would like to see is for him to wait around for like the Daniel Dubois, Nathan Gorman winner. I think that would be pretty cool. It would sell well in the UK. You would kind of get who the best British heavyweight prospect is. I would be interested in something like that. But if he's talking about Povetkin, it seems like he's already got, trinket aspirations. I think that's a dangerous fight for him at this point. He's big, he's slow, he's stiff, but he's got some power and his work rate's decent. He's never going to be the guy there, but you just kind of got to work with what you got there.
Yeah, so I don't think it'll happen anyways. I think there's too much danger for him and his management team. Mainly his management team, by the way.
Yeah, you really got to manage him carefully because he's just not that skilled.
All right, we have a comment from Swayze Sucks. And I like Patrick Swayze in 30
Hey, what the hell, man?
Nobody puts Baby in a Quarter, and Roadhouse was significantly maybe one of the top 5 greatest movies of all time, don't you think?
Yeah, Roadhouse kicks ass, man.
Yep. But, what did he say before I lose it? He says, Joyce is too slow and doesn't have much head movement. Water KOs this clown within 3. I don't know what in the hell that has to do with what we're talking about, though.
Well, I do think that he's right, though. I mean, I think Wilder would knock Joyce out. I mean, he's a big, stiff dude, just kind of like Brazil is. I mean, in fact, that would probably be a fun fight if you put Joyce against Brazil. I mean,
I don't think it would be.
It would just
Joyce
be Rock'em
out in a round or two. I don't think it's Rock'em Sock'em Robots because Joyce can throw some straight punches and stuff, and Joyce has a decent amateur background. Brazil doesn't. I think Joyce.
Yeah, Brazil was an Olympian.
Yes, so it doesn't mean shit in this country anymore, does it? Deontay Wilder won a bronze medal. Bronze Squad.
Bronze Squad. Is that how he got his nickname, the Bronze Bomber? Because he won a bronze? I don't know, honestly.
Which is like the dumbest reason you would get a nickname after being third.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't know if I think he lost to who was it, Clemente Russo in the Olympics. The Italians make some odd stylists, but they perform pretty good at the amateur level. But yeah, I think Wilder would start Joyce as well. But I don't think they would move him towards Deontay Wilder. Again, I agree that Wilder would blitz him, but I think they would move him towards Anthony Joshua because it's an in-house fight in a way.
Joshua or Wilder, because it's also in England. That's a million people will show up to watch that.
Yeah, exactly. Joshua or Fury. I mean, yeah, either one of those you're going to sell pretty well against, and I think time will tell. I mean, with the way the modern landscape is, you can maneuver all sorts of guys that don't deserve it. I mean, look at Billy Joe Saunders versus Shifat Isufu. I mean, the maneuvering and so long as the political connections are good, you can maneuver all sorts of guys who don't deserve it in a title shot. So yeah, I don't think he's going to get Wilder though.
All right. Anything else, Jeremiah?
Anything else? Nah, I don't think I really saw anything that was particularly enticing. Nah.
And tomorrow on thegruelingtruth.com, you can hear me. You can read my take on Anthony, or what's his name, Rocky Marciano. I'm having a hell of a time tonight.
Yeah, well, I wanted to input something that I almost forgot real quick, but the pound-for-pound list, I don't see either one of these guys on it yet, but as soon as Prograis and Taylor fight, one of those two is definitely going to make the list too.
You get a great enough fight, maybe they both could make it.
Yeah, maybe, right? If it's nip and tuck, and you get a split decision or something.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind everybody to check out our sponsors, the Retired Boxers Foundation and MyBookie.ag. MyBookie.ag, up to 100% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $300. Tomorrow, Survive in Advance will be here at noon tomorrow with me and Steve Risley. 2 o'clock to Sheridan Report with your top plays of the day. And me and Jeremiah will be right back here tomorrow night at 11 as long as something happens between now and then.
Hey, speaking of that, John wanted to know if you could do the show at 9 tomorrow.
All right. So, guys, we're going to do the show at 9 tomorrow night inside Boxing Weekly.
Here we go.
John Einmeinhofer will be with us to defend the numbers that were below $1 million because it's close enough to what he said, Jeremiah. You know that.
It is. It is.
All right. So, we're going to wrap it up. If Jeremiah doesn't interrupt me again, doing his best Steve Risley impersonation as I try to wrap up the show. Remember, see, you did it again. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Zeno Live Radio. You can download our app on the iTunes Store. Make sure you do. So, for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.